Happy lunch hour for New Year's Day, gang. Okay, so hopefully by now you are awake, moving, hopefully not nursing a hangover, maybe eating some leftovers from last night or doing whatever. But here it is, it's the first of the year, and this is when resolutions come into play. We'll see if you make it to the end of the month. But it's something that I wanted to talk about, and waking up this morning and kind of seeing what's going on kind of brings it home. You know, we all profess to be as close to self-sufficient, self-reliant as we can. And in my opinion, that's very important. Maybe this year you decided, hey, I'm going to take my prepping to the next level. Maybe today is the day you woke up and said, you know what, I'm going to start prepping. Wherever you are on the spectrum, self-reliance, self-sufficiency is what you're doing. But the big deal is, do not ever get this thought out of your head once and for all. Think, it can't happen to me. Okay? You look at what's happened here recently, and prepping, one thing is preparing for what we don't know is coming. And the it can't happen to me mentality is the death knell for anybody as a prepper. Let's just look at last night. As of right now, which is just short of 11 o'clock this morning, the death count in New Orleans is about a dozen people. Injured is about 3 dozen people. Because a whole bunch of people went out last night with the thought of, I'm going to celebrate, nothing bad will happen to me. So they didn't have a plan. You look at Puerto Rico. The power went out in Puerto Rico New Year's Eve for nearly 2 million people. From a hurricane from 7 years ago, I think it was, that the infrastructure still sucks. How many people in those 7 years did anything for when it happens again? Or how many people had the thought process of, it can't happen again? Remember last time, I mean, there were places in Puerto Rico that were without power for a year, right? But it can't happen to me, so I won't do anything about it. It's going to be days before everybody in Puerto Rico has power again. Fortunately, they don't have to worry about this huge cold front that I talked about a few days ago that's coming through. No worry about snow in Puerto Rico. How about all the people in Western North Carolina, Eastern Tennessee? Hurricane. Can't happen to me. Until it did. How many people in Maui last year? Whole island goes up on fire. Can't happen to me. How about all the people like Lake and Riley, Jocelyn Nungaray, countless others who were kidnapped, raped, tortured, abused, killed? It can't happen to me. That's the thing. When it comes to prepping, anything and everything can happen to you. You know, I laugh. You see, every year we see this. The stories in New York City, Times Square for New Year's Eve. And millions of people pack Times Square wearing diapers because they let you in 12 hours ahead of time, but you're not allowed to leave to go to the bathroom. So you got to stand around for 12 hours without relieving yourself. What happens when you're in that crowd? All those people, millions of people surrounding you, and you have a medical emergency of some sort, anything. It can happen. You can have a heart attack. I don't care if you're 30 years old. 30-year-olds have heart attacks too. Okay. Or anything. I mean, a seizure, you're a diabetic, pick something. Well, I'm sorry, but we couldn't get EMS through the crowd, so you just basically get to die on the spot. Okay. And maybe they'll clean you up at 3 o'clock in the morning. Last night, we don't even know this of yet, driving home from whatever party people were at. How many people got arrested for DUI? How many people were in car accidents? How many people were killed on the road? It can't happen to me. You see this all the time. People get in the car and drive drunk. Figure they're going to make it, right? But even if you didn't, okay, even if you were the designated driver, you were stone cold sober last night, driving perfectly. Statistics say at 1 o'clock in the morning on New Year's Eve, 1 out of every 2 cars on the road is being operated by a drunk driver. It can happen. Just because you are doing everything right doesn't mean everybody else is. Our self-sufficiency comes with a caveat. We need to be aware, we need to prepare for everybody else to do stupid shit. Okay? It's gonna happen. It's a matter of how much risk are you willing to take. We all know that every time we get in the car on a Tuesday afternoon coming home from work or whatever, there is a chance we could get in a car accident, but we still get in the car. You know, we know when we get on a plane that there's always a chance that it could fall out of the sky. We know when we eat in a restaurant, there's always a chance that the food is bad, whatever. Those are small risks. It's when people start taking the bigger risks because it can't happen to me is when it happens. And this is what you're preparing for. I'm not saying everybody needs to prepare for Armageddon or an EMP or nuclear war or anything. Could those happen? Yeah. And they're probably on the same aspect of getting in a car accident or a plane falling out of the sky. Unless, of course, you're flying on a Boeing. But it can't happen to me needs to be taken out of your vernacular. Unless, of course, you're Kamala Harris and thinking about running for president again, and I tell you this, but that ain't happening. Okay. Make a plan for everything you do. This goes into anything we talk about. How many times I've said, never leave your home unarmed. When you go into a store, how many times have you heard me say this? Do you know where the emergency exits are? That should be the first thing you look around for, okay? I know I can get out the front door, but if the bad guys come in the front door, where's the back door? How do I get out? Every store's got to have one. Do you know how to get to it? When you go into a crowd, let's say it was last night in New Orleans, why are you standing in the middle of the street where the car hit? Truck. Would you stand in the middle of the street on May 18th? No, because that's where cars go. Maybe I want to be on the sidewalk. Are the chances of a car coming up the sidewalk still there? Yes, but a lot less than a car going down the middle of the street and hitting you. You could talk about weather events. Do you pay attention to them? Have you done anything? How many times have you heard me joke about people at the 11th hour going to buy plywood for hurricanes? Okay. No, you prepare ahead of time. How many people in Western North Carolina or Eastern Tennessee were prepared for once-in-a-century type flooding? There were some, sure, okay. Maybe their houses survived. You know, you don't build a house in the bottom of a ravine, just saying, okay. You know, you want to be on high ground. That's risk. That's risk aversion. If you're going to ramp up your prepping this year, if you're going to start prepping this year, because bad shit happens to everybody, okay? Hate to tell you this, you know, don't think it can't happen to me. If you're going to ramp it up, make a plan for anything. Sit down today as you're watching a football game at whatever atrocious halftime show they have, and write down a list of all the bad things that can happen to you. You know, Nobody goes into a marriage, standing in front of the priest there saying your I do's, going, oh, we're going to get divorced. Yet 50% of marriages in the United States end up in divorce. It can happen to you. Nobody ever thinks about it. Everybody, you talk to almost anybody at a company, I'm irreplaceable. They'd never get rid of me until it happens. Okay. Make a list of all the bad things that could happen to you. Not doom and gloom, not fear porn, nothing like this. Your spouse could die. You could lose your job. Your house could burn down. You could be stuck in torrential floods. Simple one, the transmission in your car breaks down. Okay? I mean, these aren't the end of the world is nigh type things. These are the regular, everyday SHTF events that can happen to you and your family. What's your plan to get out of it? Gee, if my house burns down, where am I going to go? Do you have that figured out? Okay. Well, gee, we'd rent an apartment. Do you have the money to do that? Do you have the credit score to do that? Okay. Whatever it would be. If your spouse dies, how does that affect the household income? Ever since the 70s, it basically takes 2 incomes, if not 3 now, to run a household. What happens if your income gets cut in half like that? Okay. For that matter, do you even have enough money to handle funeral expenses? Just saying. Simple one. If the transmission goes out, that's a couple $1,000. Do you have the money to replace your transmission? That's prepping, guys. Okay. That's having money back to handle the little things. Do you have a firearm? Have you been trained on it? If you've never used one, go buy one and go take a firearms course. Learn how to use it. Every gun store will tell you where you can go to get firearms training. No problem. You need to do it. Do you carry it with you wherever you go? You should, unless you want to wind up like any of the thousands of victims of Tren de Aragua or MS-13 or any of these illegals. I mean, you just had another story, again, on the New York subway of a guy getting pushed in front of the train yesterday. Why you're standing on the edge, I have no idea. It's not like you have 2 seconds to board a subway. Back up so you can't be pushed in. Do you always keep your head on a swivel? There is something I've mentioned, I can't tell you how many times. Paying attention to your surroundings. Get your nose out of your phone when you're walking around in the store, in the parking lot, and pay attention to what's going on to you. You know what the bad guys are looking for? Somebody who's not paying attention, because they can come up on you and you don't see them. But if your head's doing one of these, they're 100 feet away and you can get away. It's all a matter of self-preservation, self-sufficiency, and getting that idiotic thought out of your head that says, it can never happen to me. Because I guarantee you, as soon as you think that, that's when it happens. Pinball out.